Well, for more, we can speak to General Michel Yakovieff, a former high-ranking NATO official. Hello to you, General. Just
Good
a
morning.
quick question. Russia's defense ministry denying its fighter jets deviated from the planned path, denying they entered Estonian airspace. Surely there's some sort of verifiable, objective data to confirm whether they did or not.
Well, quite frankly, first of all, I've seen no trace in the open internet of, the actual track, their flight path. So it's difficult for me to comment. What I can say, though, is that innocent passage, as it's called, is an inherent right of flight to include a military aircraft. So I understand that NATO is angry, that Estonia is angry, and so on. But quite frankly, to fly from St. Petersburg to Kaliningrad, any aircraft will need to fly into some sovereign airspace, Finland or Estonia. Choose your friend, basically. So the Russian view that they have a right to do that kind of flight is actually legally, it does have some standing.
Yeah, for 12 minutes?
Besides,
For 12 minutes?
yes,
Yeah.
I mean, you can fly into, they're not bombing. I mean, it's a quite different story from drones, which crash in the country, which is another story. And the fact that, NATO says they're not squawking, meaning they haven't put the IFF interrogation friend or foe mode on. To be honest, a large number of NATO aircraft operate routinely over the Baltic without squawking also. So I'm not saying that NATO here and Estonia are speaking in bad faith. It's not good news for them to have that kind of flight, where the Russians take no precaution whatever vis-à-vis the neighbors and air control traffic in particular. But in reality, the Russians do have a point in saying what we are doing is not blatantly illegal.
Yeah, and not blatantly illegal, but would you suspect that perhaps they're testing NATO?
I do believe they are testing NATO, and my own response would be to do the same flights into their own air-controlled area. But you have routinely that kind of business over the Taiwan Strait, for example. Flying into someone else's territory, blah, 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 it's not good manners. It is provocative, especially in this week. Why would you need to do it today, especially with 3 aircraft? Soviet era relics, by the way. It is a test. It is a test of will, but it's not blatantly illegal. And contrary to the drones, which were meant to land into Poland, these aircraft are not landing into Estonia nor dropping ordnance. So legally speaking, it is not aggression. Politically speaking, yes, it's provocation.
Yeah, but if NATO were to try to carry out flights in Russia's airspace, that's a whole nother ballgame, isn't it? That's much more dangerous for the alliance to take that risk.
If I were NATO, quite frankly, I'd fly from Poland into Latvia over Kaliningrad. And I just say, we're flying. Let's see what's your reaction.
Because it feels like at this point we might be at a game of one-upsmanship then. If Vladimir Putin is willing to take that risk and NATO responds in turn, where does that end?
Indeed, but we've been there for quite some time. There's of course, for NATO, a fine line between no reaction and overreaction. As I said, I'd play with their own rules over Kaliningrad just to piss them off, to be honest. And that would be it.
Right. And that's a balance, I think, that we are trying to juggle here between diplomacy and provocation here. Ukraine's president said he's going to be meeting Donald Trump next week on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. What do you think the two leaders will discuss, and bearing in mind that Trump in the past has cast doubt on his willingness to defend NATO's allies?
Yes, and then when talking of Zelensky and Trump, NATO is almost irrelevant. It's out of the picture, at least in the eyes of Trump. Um, I don't see much good that will come out from that kind of meeting, since Trump is objectively an ally of Putin, definitely a friend of Putin. But of course, Zelensky is obligated to do that kind of thing, to kowtow to America, to Trump.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable hearing you say that NATO's irrelevant in this equation. Do you think that underlines that perhaps Europe needs its own army? Can it afford one?
that's the question since De Gaulle, 1967. Of course, Europe needs. Now, does it need an army in the sense of a single army? No, technically no. Does it need a procedure to decide and act together when NATO will not do it? Read when America does not want to participate. It's a French line that obviously yes, and it has been so forever. Nowadays, a number of our European friends and allies are starting to realize that the French were preaching in the desert, but that essentially they were right.
General, thank you very much for your time. General Michel Yakovieff speaking to us there. Thank you.